In early 2026, the Strait of Hormuz became a graveyard for global trade. Geopolitical escalations effectively locked the strait, removing nearly 1 billion barrels of crude oil from the global supply chain in a matter of months. This chart tracks the baseline oil price index alongside traditional supply and demand models. Usually, a disruption of this magnitude forces the price line to shoot upward, targeting $150 a barrel as refineries scramble for limited stocks. But the current market is moving in the opposite direction. Brent prices are sliding backward, and global analysts are now issuing reports forecasting an oversupply. Western traders are interpreting these soft prices as a signal of weak global demand. They see the low cost of a barrel and conclude that the world's appetite for energy is simply fading. While shipping manifests show a drop in volume, refineries outside of China are draining their existing stocks to stay online. The apparent stability relies on the market's assumption that this drop in imports represents a genuine drop in consumption. For 50 years, the global energy balance was managed here by OPEC. When prices fluctuated, Saudi Arabia functioned as the swing producer, cutting or raising output to stabilize the market. China has now assumed the role of the primary market stabilizer. By managing discretionary demand rather than raw production, Beijing functions as the invisible central banker of the oil world. This shift is supported by a stockpile estimated at 1.2 to 1.3 billion barrels. This is likely the largest national oil inventory ever assembled in history, providing Beijing with a massive, unprecedented strategic buffer. Pricing power has migrated away from the nations that control the wells and toward the one nation that controls a billion-barrel reservoir of demand visibility. Beijing's strategy relies entirely on aggressive timing. When global prices drop, China accelerates its imports, vacuuming up discounted Russian and Iranian barrels to fill these storage arrays. As soon as a crisis like the Hormuz blockade pushes prices up, China immediately halts its buying on the spot market. In April 2026 alone, their crude imports reportedly dropped by 20%. This flow diagram shows the confusion. When external import lines vanish, analysts see a massive reduction in activity and assume China's economy has slowed. But internal consumption remains constant. China expands flow from internal reservoirs, substituting hidden stocks for visible international purchases. By treating its storage levels as a state secret, China uses this opacity to suppress global prices, while its own internal industrial machinery continues to run smoothly, operating without interruption and at absolute full capacity. Global supply chains do not actually run on raw crude oil. They require the diesel, jet fuel, and gasoline that come out of the other end of a refinery. While China uses its crude reserves to protect its own industries, it has sharply reduced its exports of these refined products to the international market. This leaves European and Asian economies in immediate peril. Unlike China, these regions lack multi-billion barrel buffers and are structurally dependent on those missing refined exports to keep their transport sectors moving. The financial market's focus on the price of raw crude is masking a critical shortage of usable fuel. When summer demand peaks, the sudden absence of Chinese diesel and gasoline will likely force a violent repricing of energy across the globe. The United States now manages global supply elasticity through its flexible shale production and LNG infrastructure. Washington controls the world's ability to produce more. China holds the opposite lever, controlling the world's visibility of consumption. They determine how much demand the rest of the world is actually allowed to see. Even as geopolitical rivals, both the US and China have a shared interest in preventing an oil spike that would crush industrial growth and trigger runaway inflation. This shared silence conceals the fact that global inventories outside of China are being exhausted at an unsustainable rate. The lack of a price spike isn't a sign of health, it's a sign that the alarm system has been muted. When China's buffer eventually reaches its limit, or Beijing stops releasing refined fuel to the world, the global system will lose its only shock absorber. With transparency gone and stocks depleted, the resulting scramble for fuel will likely force a sudden, systemic breakdown of the trade and credit markets that rely